Hi there, this is my, well, call it a tutorial on how I prepare line art for colouring. This is specifically when the line art is very clean, like something that's inked, like this piece from David Strauss. Yeah, let me just show you the kind of quality that I'm working with here. This is at about 200%, and you can see the level of detail and how clean it really is. There are very few pixels out of place. There's a couple over here, and this here is an example. This is a section where the ink's going to remain, and very nearby in about the same level is a bit of dirt that should be removed. And because of them being so close together, and even the sections which I'll basically call it dirt, is very isolated and easy to remove, that I'm not going to be showing you a process for cleaning artwork at this point, just the process to take it from a flattened black and white image to a black on transparent image ready for colouring below. And you'll see I'm working with a grayscale image, flattened JPEG of it, and when I first change that, you can use CMYK or RGB. I personally prefer RGB and then to flatten to CMYK once done, but that's nowadays is mostly a personal preference. And then I'm going to select the whole layer and go over to my channels palette and just create a new channel. It automatically names it as Alpha 1, and then I'll paste the selection that I made. So now I effectively have the whole page in the Alpha channel. I'll then invert that so that the white areas are the line art that I'm going to be keeping, and then make a selection based off the Alpha channel. Head back to layers, create a new layer, grab my paint bucket, set it to black, and fill that selection. That leaves me with a very quick way to go from a black and white image to a black on see-through image. A lot of people do this just, obviously deselect my area. A lot of people do this just setting the layer to multiply, but you'll see once I'm done why it is I prefer doing it this way around, because it gives you a lot more control as to how those pixels display, the pixels within the black. I'm going to quickly do a comparison between the original artwork and the new artwork by copying the base layer and putting it above everything else and putting a white layer below my new layer. That's without, that's the old one, and the new one. You can see the subtle difference in the more transparent black areas, you know, where the ink's a little bit thinner, and that is basically just the difference is about the same as you would get if you just used your levels a little, or you trimmed your levels, your histogram a little bit. I personally prefer it this way, but sometimes you can lose a lot of your detail using this method, in which case you'd need to edit the selection before you use it. Like I said, this is the clean example. Okay, now to show you why it is I prefer this method over using the multiply blending mode on your lines layer. And that is, okay, I'm just going to basically rough out a quick selection here. Obviously you'd go through the whole image and you'd put down your flats and, you know, fill in your color. Now I'm working below the lines here. At least I will be as soon as I make a layer. Working below the lines but above the base layer. And I generally work dark to light. I found that I think better working from dark to light. I'm just going to create a couple of layers that basically represent my general process when I'm coloring something. I'll start off with a layer of flats. Now, some people will flat out an entire image one go, others will flat out individual objects. I tend to choose according to the project. I don't think in which way is specifically better. And I tend to keep my base layer or my flats separate from my midtones and highlights, and sometimes even several layers of that. Although, I must admit, sometimes I just flatten it all out anyway. Just selecting a brush quickly to brush in my midtones. And you can already start seeing the reason for doing your lines this way. You see how the line reacts to the color underneath. And that is basically the reason why this is a good idea. Because as you start painting in behind the it's specifically good for painted shading rather than the cut and gradient style. But it especially gets useful when you get to the highlights, because the line art gives way to the shade, or in this case the light of the paint, and it just, even the line art doesn't disappear. It kind of blends in to a certain degree without becoming softer, or what you would do with anything else. Then I'm going to add a quick rim light here, and I'm still working below the lines. Just selected a paintbrush, selected my favorite rim light color, which is more of a crutch than anything else. Going back to an old stable brush, but I'd like it just a little bit faded on the edges and pull up the minimum diameter. Now, this isn't generally how I would do a rim light. Still working below the lines here, and you can see when you choose a particularly light color, there's little to no difference between being under the lines and being outside of the lines. And so you can work quite loosely, because you've got the freedom of not being restricted to the lines themselves. And this is particularly useful if you've got some lines which don't make sense, or they cross over each other in a bit of the wrong way. Then without having to worry about which layer you're on, you can just run in and edit. And I couldn't resist. I just had to sort of paint a little bit more in the lenses there. So you can see where this is going. Yeah. And just quickly so that I can show you, this is what... Oh, I lost my palette there for a moment. Just... layers. Oh, they're probably underneath. I just want to quickly show you what the difference is to setting your layers to multiply as opposed to using the soft light method. Here's the original line art. I'm going to quickly set it to multiply. Obviously, if you were using this method, you wouldn't put your rim light underneath your lines. You'd put it above. So I'm just going to set it that way. See, this is what you get with multiply. You're restricted to the very black lines, whereas using the soft light method, you can blend in those lines without losing the quality that those lines add to the drawing. But I feel for a painted sort of style when it comes to your coloring, that this makes a huge difference. A lot of people just go paint directly over the lines to a point where they're no longer visible, which is also an option, but I feel like it's, I don't know, it kind of kicks dust at the original artist, because they actually created this work and then you're kind of just using it almost as a template rather than the original. So yeah, that's what I have to say. That's how I prepare my lines for coloring.